this atheist, who had a drug problem, who was an alcoholic, who had developing psychosis, who had severe depression and an anxiety disorder, the last three were diagnosed, walked into a church to argue with people about the existence of God. I walked into a church after being invited to go to a church by someone that I didn't know, and I thought, all right, I'm a progressive, I'm an atheist, I'm educated. I was in my third year of college at this point in time when I was 20. And I thought, this will probably be a pretty good opportunity for me to go and flex my intellectual prowess and argue with the people at this church about why I think they're stupid for believing that God exists and why I think they're stupid for believing that Jesus exists. Okay, a little background information. For 5 years, I was an atheist, and I detested everything to do with religion, especially Christianity. I had been raised Catholic, and after going to Catholic school and being exposed to a lot of things that Catholicism exposes you to, I just grew to detest religion, and I thought that people that believed in Jesus were hypocrites because they didn't practice what Jesus preached. That, and I'd been introduced to some scientific arguments that counteracted the Bible, that claimed that the Bible was inauthentic and claimed that the things that were in the Bible were inauthentic. I hadn't been exposed to a lot of theories, but I'd been exposed to enough that at the time, 20 years old, I was naive and I thought, yeah, this is enough to prove that God doesn't exist. So, fast forward, 20 years old, this atheist walks into a church to argue with Christians about the existence of God. Now I get to this church and I have a problem right away because no one in this church spoke English. They were Russians, and I didn't expect that. I walked into the building. The building didn't have any religious artifacts up and around and on display. I thought that might have been the case because of my experience with Catholicism, but nope. I show up to this church, there's no crosses on the walls, there's no paintings and figures of Mary and Jesus. I didn't even think that I had walked into a church. I was like, oh dear, this is kind of strange. But I went into it and I walked into a room that was in the building, and in the building there was about 80 people sitting down facing this man who was speaking, and he was speaking in a language that I didn't understand. Found out that that language was Russian. So when I saw this, I thought, crap. I don't know what I'm going to do now because these people aren't going to be able to have a conversation with me if they don't speak English. But I sat down anyway, and I just thought maybe I'll get an opportunity to speak with someone later on, and that's where I can argue with them. Now the man continued to speak, and it wasn't long. Like, I think I arrived late. I didn't arrive when he had started speaking. I arrived close to the end because he wasn't up there for very long. And immediately after he had stopped speaking, everyone in the room broke out into like screaming, crying, talking. They were praying. But it was like a kind of prayer that I had never seen before. When I saw people pray, it was like, get on your knees in a pew and pray and be silent. These people were like saying things out loud, and they were crying and they were yelling, and some of them were sitting there silent the way that I thought that that's what prayer was. But what struck me was that everyone in the room was doing this. Everyone. All 80 of them. And these people, the age range was something like from 80 to 13. From 13 to 80. There was a lot of young people there, a lot of middle-aged people there, and a lot of old people there. So they're breaking out into prayer, and I'm still sitting there thinking, crap, now I'm definitely not going to get an opportunity to argue with people about the existence of God. But just as I was thinking that, a woman walked up to me, and she looked me in the eye, and she leaned over, and she said, in a broken English, "Can I pray for you?" It's my best attempt at mimicking her accent. And I just thought, sure. Go ahead. And I thought that very defiantly. Like, I didn't want to say yes, but I just thought, yeah, like, I'm going to prove something to you when your prayers don't work, kind of thing. That's what was going through my head. She reached out. She put her hand on me, and she said, in Jesus' name, and she started praying. And that's when my life changed. And what I mean by my life changed is she started praying and I started manifesting. Now, if you're not familiar with the term manifesting, I'm just going to describe it to you. My body started doing things that defied metaphysics. My body started doing things that I couldn't explain. I started levitating and bouncing off of the chair that I was sitting in like a jackhammer. My feet, my butt, my hands, no part of my body was touching the ground in the chair at the same time. They were literally like bouncing off. And I wasn't causing my body to do this. I didn't have control of my body. This woman started praying and immediately my body started doing this. And in my head, I'm able to have thoughts, but I'm not able to control my arms. It's like if I was thinking, move my arm, couldn't move my arm. It's like, stop doing this. I couldn't stop doing this. I was at a loss for thought and I couldn't control what my body was doing. That's what I mean by manifesting. And I was scared. I was terrified. I didn't know what to think. And it was strange. I thought it was strange because I was able to have thoughts, but I wasn't able to control my body. And here I am locked in my head with my thinking, just thinking, I can't explain what is happening right now. I can't control my body, and I don't know what to do. I am met with this reality that I can't comprehend, but I can't deny that it's happening because it is happening. And as I'm manifesting, everyone in the room that had been praying immediately stops praying on their own and they circle me. And they get around me, they stretch out their hands, they put their hands on each other, and now they're praying for me. And I am aware, I can comprehend, I can move my eyes and I can see what's happening, but I'm like bouncing off of this chair and just watching what's happening, terrified in my mind, not able to control my body. Whew. And as this continues, and it continues for a while, I think it had to have been at least close to an hour. I start to feel like I'm getting constricted. Like my body is being wrapped by a boa constrictor. And it just continues to feel smaller and more suffocated. And I'm losing my breath. I'm still bouncing off the chair like a jackhammer. And everyone is still praying for me. They're all around me. They're praying. And this woman is still just screaming. And she's all I can hear and make out in English is Jesus. And I'm just like, what the freaking heck is going on? But my body starts to feel constricted. And I am beginning to feel more terrified because I'm losing my breath as I'm continuing to bounce off this chair like a jackhammer. And then these voices started in my head. What sounded like hundreds of voices. And they were all saying in a combination, kill yourself, kill yourself, kill yourself. God doesn't love you. Kill yourself, kill yourself, kill yourself. God doesn't love you. And in my mind, I'm able to I'm able to comprehend that I'm not able to control my body, that all of this is happening, that I can't explain it, yet it's producing this fear in me that feels like absolute agony. And I think to myself, because I'm able to have thoughts, I'm like in this situation and I'm able to think, I'm like, I can't, what do I do? But I'm able to also think about these voices. And I think, well, I don't believe in God. So why are these voices acknowledging God? And I thought that was strange. And then it was almost like a thought came over me, and it was like, what's happening inside of me right now with my body reacting this way, and with hearing these voices in my head and this feeling of being constricted by a boa constrictor. All of this is happening for a reason. And the reason is that something inside of me is directly opposed to what all of these people praying for me represent. It is at its wit's end with being in this position and being opposed by this counteracting force. And in my mind, I'm thinking, what is in me? What is going on? And as these voices continue to say, kill yourself, kill yourself, kill yourself, God doesn't love you, and as I feel more constricted, and as my body continues to bounce like a jackhammer off of this chair, another voice spoke in my mind. And this one terrified me. Because when it spoke, all of the other voices shut up. And it said my name, Stephen. And I just had this thought in my head when it said my name and when all these voices shut up, and I just felt like completely terrified. I just had a thought like, who are you? And the voice said, Jesus. And I thought, okay. And then it said, come and follow me. And I thought in my head, and again, this is, all these people are still around me screaming and praying. My body's still bouncing off of this chair like a jackhammer. I still feel constricted. All of that's still present. The only thing now that's changed is all of the voices that were saying, kill yourself, kill yourself, kill yourself, God doesn't love you, have stopped. And my mind is completely clear, still comprehending the chaos that's going on, but it's now completely clear, and it's just fixated on the fact that this voice has spoken. This voice is terrifying me. This voice has said my name. This voice has said that it's Jesus, and this voice has said, come and follow me. And I'm just thinking, follow you? Don't you know who I am? I hate you. I've spent the last 5 years of my life just detesting everything about Jesus, about religion, about Christianity, about faith. I'm an atheist. Don't you know what I've done? I'm a drug addict. I'm an alcoholic. I have done so many vile and grotesque things in my life. Why do you want me to follow you? Like, this makes no sense. And I'm just thinking in my head, I'm like, I can't deny the fact that this event is happening right now, or that this voice is speaking in my mind, and I'm clearly reacting to it. And I have another thought. I'm just like, I can't, why me? And the voice said again, come and follow me. And I'm like, I don't know how. And then it said, just say yes. And the second the voice said, just say yes, I realized that I had then regained my ability to speak. I'd regained my ability to talk. So I thought in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm going to say yes, because clearly these people that are around me praying right now, they represent Jesus. They are clearly Christians, and they're praying, and they won't stop saying Jesus' name. And whatever's inside my body right now, whatever's causing me to react so violently opposed to what they represent, is clearly not good. Whatever's in me is not good. And this voice has caused these voices in my head, these other voices that were telling me to kill myself and that God doesn't love me, to stop. So clearly there's power in this voice, and I am terrified of this voice, but this voice is authoritative. This voice is pure. There's just something about this voice that I can't quite comprehend and understand, but I just know that it is. I know that this voice is almighty. I know that this voice is authority. I know that this voice matters. And so I realized I'd regained my ability to speak. And so I said, yes. And the second the words left my lips, everyone in the room stopped praying. And this thing that felt like absolute death just like came out of my body. It just like came out. And I took a breath. And it felt like the first breath I had ever taken in my entire life. My lungs filled with air. And I breathed. And it was like new. It was like being born. It was like I had never experienced the taste of air, the ability to breathe so clearly before, and my body stopped bouncing off of the chair. It just settled. And that thing, like that feeling had just come out of me and left in the breath, and I just like came to, and everyone is just staring at me now. And I'm just absolutely acutely aware that the situation has now changed, and that what was so wrong with me, in me, was no longer in my body and a part of me. That something had miraculously changed. And I looked, and my arms that were covered in sores from the drug use had been completely healed. There was no patch of the sores on my arms. And I just like sat up in the chair, and then the voice said again to me, very clearly, meet me at the altar. And I thought, okay. And the second it said, meet me at the altar, there was like a whole bunch of people in front of me. Like this room was packed full of 80 people, and it wasn't a very big room. They parted in front of me and formed like a walkway through them so I could walk through them. And I stood up, and it was like immediately the voice said, meet me at the altar. They parted. I stood up, I walked through them, and I walked to the place where I had seen the man at the beginning of the night speaking from. And I walked up there, but as I was walking, it was like there was a wall that I was walking towards, and he was standing in front of the wall, or had been standing in front of the wall. So I walked up, and I stood in the spot, and then I turned around, and I faced everyone. And then immediately, I just felt this incredible feeling of warmth go into my body, fill it, and then my body just started to sway back and forth. And I wasn't controlling it again. It just started to sway, but unlike the previous feeling where it felt like constricting, where it felt like death and decay, and just gave me this horrible feeling, and clearly was partnered with me physically manifesting in a way that was metaphysically impossible. This feeling was complete peace, joy, warmth, and assurance. No voices were in my head telling me to kill myself or that God didn't love me. My mind was completely clear and had not felt, it felt so clear that I was barely able to comprehend how different my mental thoughts were in these few short moments. Like from sitting in the chair, stopping the voice, and then walking up and going to this spot. It was like I was thinking as a new person. And I felt completely different. than what I felt like before I walked into this church. And people know what you feel like. You know what your daily life feels like. You know how your thoughts are. You know what your mind feels like, what your body feels like. You're very familiar with yourself. I was acutely aware that I was not the same person that I was when I had walked into this building before. I was completely different. My mind wasn't feeling the same, thinking the same, comprehending things the same. My body didn't feel the same, and I felt completely new. And then here I am standing here in this spot, swaying back and forth with this feeling coming into me of just like warmth and assurance. And then I started speaking in a language that I didn't understand. It just started coming out of my mouth. And needless to say, that is the night that absolutely changed my life, and where I went from being an atheist to being a 100% full believer in Jesus Christ.